I've played well over 500 collective hours of Fallout 76 at this point. It's a game that I am honestly blown away by and really enjoy almost all the time I play it, despite some of the issues it does have. Before I really get started talking about it, I just want to say this video is not really going to be a proper review. It's basically going to be a why do you like this piece of shit video game review, and even though I do enjoy it, I want to point out that I'm not defending the publishers or the bugs here. The issues with the publisher that I have extend far past one game, and what they did with the launch of this game is completely unacceptable. However, I do not think it necessarily reflects on the game itself just how awful the publishers are. Same with how the bugs are. They don't necessarily reflect on the game underneath, more just reflect on the poor programmers at Bethesda Game Studios, and not so much the actual game content. I will be talking about that a bit later, but with that out of the way, here we go. I love Fallout 76, but I'm not blinded by it. I played the original beta on the PS4 when it first came out, and I still have some screenshots I'm showing now of what a god-awful, buggy mess that was. The game was horrific, buggy, broken. It was just a sad mess of a game, yet underneath all of it, I could see how good of a game they wanted it to be. I could see what they were going for. It's undeniable that Fallout 76 is a lot like Fallout 4 in terms of the kind of gameplay it has and the way it plays. So, here's a controversial opinion. Fallout 76 is a good game. Here's a less controversial opinion. Fallout 4 is a good game, just not a good Fallout game. Now, I've heard that comment echoed a lot within the Fallout and general gaming community, and it's because a large portion of people say that Fallout 4's best parts are the exploration, crafting, and base building, which made it over to 76. Fallout 76 is largely, to me, the best parts of Fallout 4, but online with friends. There are light changes made to almost everything Fallout 4 did, but the good is still there, and as a side note, I find the parts that Fallout 4 did poorly to be the RPG conversation parts, and actually having decisions to make throughout the campaign. It was basically pretty linear, but I will even say that 76 with Wastelanders has surpassed how Fallout 4 did conversations, as it leans more into Fallout New Vegas than it does any of the other Fallout games. The main changes you get from 4 to 76 are the leveling, as crafting and shooting are pretty much exactly the same. This is because in 76 the leveling actually matters way more, and there are specific character builds you can kind of go for. The game actually has a really solid leveling and character building system. It gives you 50 points to use as you see fit for a character special, allowing you to actively level into what you think you need. Since it's not infinite like Fallout 4, you actually have to pick and choose what you want. You can always easily go and swap cards, like if you pick to go for explosives and intelligence, but then you need to work on a weapon upgrade, you can just switch over to gunsmith. But because you're having to actually pick and choose what you want, you can't just go into everything all the time. Do you want to level into melee or level into heavy weapons? Do you want to level into rifles or level into pistols? Since you actually have to choose that and really build the character around those weapons, you're given a ton of perk cards to actually do that and actually level and make a proper build like you want to really focus on what you want to do and how you want to play the game. You also get mutations, a feature that wasn't in 4 that is in 76, to help get even more in depth with those builds. You get mutations by either crafting them yourself, randomly getting them through radiation, or buying them from a player vendor. And this allows for some crazy stuff such as my personal melee build. There's a lot that works for melee, but I am personally a bloodied melee build. That means I'm a glass cannon. So basically, I have perks, so I get some more damage from my melee weapons. And then I have perks that give me more defense the higher my strength stat. Then I have a perk that gives me more strength the more radiation I have. Then I have 2 mutations to just add more melee damage, and a mutation that means the lower my health, the more damage I do. Not to mention, I have legendary armor that the lower my health, the more my special stats go up, and my weapon does more damage the lower my health. If you have a character not built like this, you might be able to still hit with a melee weapon for maybe 100 damage, and when you're starting the game, you're only shooting things for like 11 points worth of damage, but this build I have is able to punch things for over 1.5 thousand points of damage. Which kind of brings me to my next topic with those weapons and armors. The game actually works really well as a looter shooter in the traditional sense of the way it's used in gaming. Fallout 76 has 47 legendary effects possible for weapons and 41 for armors. Those can be mixed and matched into 1 to 3 star legendaries for a total of over 3,000 different legendary weapon and armor effects across over 100 different weapons and over 40 different armors. These allow you to really build out a character as you want, such as, if you build a VATS critical build, you could get a legendary rifle that has perks where VATS criticals do 50% more damage, and using VATS uses less AP, so that you can just use VATS on everything you see and really bank and roll into those criticals all the time. Basically, there's a large portion of the game that does revolve around getting these legendaries when you start to get to higher levels, but luckily since launch, they did plan for this. You can trade in any of the legendaries you don't want to any train station to break them down into legendary script that you can then trade to an NPC to get random legendary drops, or sell in shops you can set up at your house. Both of which are features they added in updates to the game, and speaking of updates, to date this game has had a total of 32 updates. 14 of those updates added new content in the form of new quests, new game modes, raids, seasonal events, in-game events, and additional things such as player stores, and now a whole new campaign. This game has not been abandoned by the developers like people tend to claim it was, and most of the major bugs now are just gone. The longest time we've had in a gap between updates was the last patch to the current Wastelanders build, which, with the fact that they added in companions, NPCs, a full dialogue system, and completely changed most of the game world, is honestly fair. And outside of that, they were releasing 2 to 3 patches a month for the entire year of 2019. The other 18 of those 32 patches were entirely bug fix and performance optimizations, which also came alongside all the other updates released to the game that added new content. Joseph Anderson is one of my favorite YouTubers, but I must say that the 1001 bugs video that he had is basically completely inaccurate now due to the current state of the game, as all bugs present in that video are now gone, and all that's really left are things like rare animation bugs. 32 updates for this game to date is more than Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Skyrim, and the Skyrim Special Edition combined have had in total updates. They looked at the game and they saw what people were enjoying, and they began to update more and cater the game more around those playstyles for the players, which has really worked out for the best to make a better game overall. They've been consistently working on the game, fixing it up, and adding new content. The most recent of those new updates and content was Wastelanders that just came to the game. It added a whole new campaign, companions, and storyline. A large part of why people didn't enjoy the game at first was they felt the game was lacking story for the world it gave you. I'd like to take a moment in this video to just tell you a small tale that the game does tell you about. Reverend Delbert Winters was living in the town of Flatwoods. He was born and raised there and was the head of the church for the town. When he witnessed the bombs fall, he saw it as the end of the world, the rapture. He was not one of the one taken, and that caused him to have a crisis of faith. He began to wander, living day to day, reflecting upon his own sins, and constantly in and out of a state of depression, until one day he saw a group of survivors eating a raw rat carcass behind a dumpster. He realized he was not abandoned by God, but left on the earth where he was needed. He then dedicated his life to helping everyone he could. He would set up a book club, and nightly survivors' guilt meetings would be hosted by him. He provided lessons and knowledge to everyone he could, and helped set up farms and pastures to help people survive through the apocalypse, even giving food to the raiders who would live nearby, just trying to live his life the best he could and help everyone he could. That is a fantastic story. That is well told and has deep emotions behind it. That is also a completely missable story told from a few terminal entries, one holotape, and a single note.
Reverend Delbert Winters here.
The writers who made the Fallout 4 questlines feel a bit boring and uninspired are seemingly not present here. There's comedy, heartbreak, and passion poured into the stories of this wasteland. You also still have the full main story where you find out about the factions lost to time as they failed to band together to stop the plague taking over Appalachia, and you meet many of these characters along the way. And now with Wastelanders, you have even more quest lines which you can change the outcomes of, 2 factions to work with or against with the faction system from New Vegas, full dialogue in the style of New Vegas with speech checks galore for quests and conversations, and a whole new main story on top of the old one which has been redone. As well as in certain new areas, there just are NPCs now, everywhere. Old quest lines now have humans just there hanging out, doing different things. It feels completely different than it used to.
Serious, sir?
I have never met a nicer and friendlier community in any video game while playing. Nobody is mean to each other in the game, nobody really attacks each other, and I've joined up with people just straight up excited to go meet new players who are first joining the game, talk to them, give them some advice, start explaining how equipment and stuff like that works, and give them some good healing items and ammunition right off the bat. People just enjoy doing that and being nice to each other like that, and it's honestly refreshing and kind of shocking. I've had many times where I would just hang out and talk with people about how their lives are going and what they've been up to in the game, as the game works just sort of a social space since no one's ever really hostile towards each other. You can actually mod the game as well. Yeah, it's not really to the same level you could like Fallout 4 or Skyrim or any other Bethesda game. You can't really do like custom weapons or companions or certain items, but I typically run with around 20 mods for the game at once for myself. As long as you're not like cheating and duplicating items, Bethesda are perfectly fine with it. I tried really hard to find a good transition into this topic, and there's no way to do it, so let's just get into it. The monetization for the game is honestly fantastic. There is no pay-to-win present whatsoever in this game, and the main arguments for that come from Fallout First and the Atom Shop items, and I want to specifically address both of these topics. Fallout First is not bad. You do not pay and suddenly get unlimited storage as a lot of people think. You suddenly get unlimited scrap storage specifically, meaning that you can hold more wood and more steel. Not that you can suddenly hold anything with no limit, you can still run into the same limit as before, you just don't really reach it as fast. You also get access to a tent that you can instantly drop down to get access to your storage and scrap box, which is really only helpful in certain instances. There's multiple train stations, player houses, and red rockets all across the map that you can go to offload legendaries you're carrying around, or just put up stuff and manage your inventory. Not to mention all the perks that make it way easier to carry more items. The Atom Shop items are almost entirely cosmetic. Note I said almost there, right? That is because you can purchase a few items that allow you to instantly fix weapons and armor or instantly put up your scrap. What everyone who complains about this system forgets to tell you is this: you cannot purchase the improved versions of those items from the shop at all. That is impossible. You can only get them by completing in-game events or quests, and they cannot be purchased with money. You can, however, purchase the worst version of them with atoms. For instance, if you wanted to repair a weapon to 100% and not 150%, you could spend money to do that. However, everyone else also forgets to mention that they are 50 atom apiece, or 50 cents, and you can get bundles where you get more of them for less, say 15 repair kits for 500. However, what nobody mentions is that the game has daily, weekly character, survival, combat, social, and world challenges, all of which will net you more Atom Shop points. You can earn 70 Atom points a day from dailies and 170 from weeklies, not to mention the thousands of other points you can get from other challenges. Everything in the Atom Shop you can purchase if you just play the game. Basically, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is this: Fallout 76 has a lot of stuff for a lot of players. Do you want to grind for legendaries and levels to try builds? Go for it. Do you want to be a repair guy who just hoards scrap to help other players fix up and mod their items? Go do it. Do you want to just spend the time making cool houses and show them off? Well, it's got that. Do you want a full campaign to play with friends in a massive open world with tons of stuff to explore and learn about? It's got you there too, and it's still got you in so many other ways. The game has a lot to offer and far more than most people seem to think. It's still not a game for everyone, and I don't want you to think it is. However, I do think it's warranted giving the game a proper shot to see if it's for you, because you could be surprised. I told one of my friends to play it, and he basically ignored me for a full year before getting it, and then he spent about 200 hours in it in a single month because it turned out to be just what he was looking for in one specific area. Now, I'm not saying it's a fantastic, polished, bug-free, greatest game ever made. I'm just trying to say it's a pretty good game that may surprise you, so you should really just give it a shot for yourself. Thanks for watching.